watching Gearz.
You know, if you're looking for a project to get into, you're not going to have to look very far to find something that you really like. Trucks are always good, Corvettes make a great project, muscle cars are red hot, so are hot rods and street rods and even import cars. But in spite of all this, one of the most popular vehicles to modify is the Jeep. Because not only are they a great all-around vehicle on and off-road, but there's also a huge aftermarket out there to support these things. However, the problem with modifying a Jeep or any 4x4 is it's easy to go too far and start transforming a street-driven rig into something like this. And if that's not what you need, that's a problem. And we get a lot of emails from people wondering just where that line is. So today we're going to show you how to take a very stock, boring Jeep JK 4-door and turn it into a very capable off-road machine that'll run the ridges with the best of them, but still be a reliable daily driver, all on a working man's budget. Yeah. Okay, the first thing that you're going to want to do on a project like this, other than change the color, is get a bigger tire on here and a better suspension system, because those are the two areas that's really going to limit a stock vehicle when you go out on the trail. So we went to Rusty's Off-Road and got a 3.5-inch lift kit for this vehicle, because that's a perfect combination for a dual-purpose vehicle. Let's take a look at it. Now, as you can see, this is a fairly simple kit. It starts off with a couple of heavy-duty adjustable track bars, one for the front, one for the rear, to hold your axles in place. Then you've got longer brake hoses so nothing gets in a bind on you. Then you've got longer sway bar end links for the rear, quick disconnect sway bar end links for the front, heavy-duty shocks, special springs that give you a better ride on the highway and much more flex when you get out on the trail. Then for the rear, you got these heavy-duty control arms that have a flex joint at one end so you get better articulation, and a rubber joint at the other so you can drive these things on the street and won't kill you. And then for the front, you got this huge radius arm system. Now these bolt right in place of your stock upper and lower links. As you can see, they got flex joints at one end, once again for flex, rubber joints at the other for streetability. And one of the main reasons that Rusty's uses a radius arm system like this is that they help fix all the problems of pinion angle and caster that happen when you lift a vehicle. Not only that, but you can't hardly tear something like that up. So you got a system that's great on the street. It more than triples the off-road ability of your vehicle, and it's something that you can put on. Here's how to do it. With the rig up in the air and the wheels off, remove the shocks, the sway bar end links, the track bar, and disconnect the brake hoses. Next, lower the axle and pull out the coil springs, followed by the stock upper and lower links. At this point, we're ready for the new stuff. And we're going to start by bolting in the new radius arms. Now notice how the upper link mounts to the lower link instead of the frame. This results in an easy to adjust, heavy-duty one-piece unit. With the radius arms in place, the new coil springs will just slide into the stock location. The heavy-duty track bar is next, and as you can see, we have it bolted to the axle at that end. And then for this end, we're going to wait until we get the vehicle down on the ground, get a load on the suspension before we try to bolt it up to the frame. Because if you don't do it this way, you're going to have a heck of a time lining up those bolt holes. Now, for the sway bar end links, that's just a matter of bolting these ends onto the sway bar and onto the axle, and then setting the length of your end links according to the specs that come with the kit. Finally, we'll finish it up with the new shocks and the longer brake hoses. Now, don't forget to bleed your brakes after changing the hoses. And that is it. No special tools, no drilling, just a well-designed system that works. And if you think the front went on easy, you're gonna love the back because it goes on exactly the same way, but even quicker. We're gonna prove that to you. So Matt, start the timer. We'll see you at the back. Just like the front, you've got to take off the shocks, the end links, the track bar, followed by the coil springs and the lower links. Now it's just a matter of bolting in the new links, sliding in the new springs, installing the longer sway bar end links, and then finishing up with the track bar, the shocks, and the brake hoses. And that's it. We are done. Now, obviously, it's going to take you a little bit longer than this, but this is something that you can actually do in your garage over the weekend because there's no dropping down the gas tank, no drilling holes, no lowering the transfer case, none of that stuff. And that is part of the magic of doing a smaller 3.5-inch lift. The other magic comes when you put the wheels and tires on. We're going to show you that in just a minute. Hey, welcome back to Gearz and the Ridge Runner project. Now, what we're doing with this JK is showing you some of the stuff that you can do to increase the off-road capabilities of your rig without losing the on-road drivability of it. Now, as you can see, we've already got a 3.5-inch lift on here from Rusty's Off-Road. Now it's time to put on tires. And that is where a lot of people run into problems. Now, the biggest mistake that people make when they're choosing tires for their vehicle is they try to get the biggest, nastiest, gnarliest thing that they can because they look cool. And if you got a hardcore off-roader with the axles to match, there's no problem with that. But if you're going to drive your vehicle on the street, you really don't want a tire that looks like a tractor tire. So your more realistic choices are the mud terrain and the all-terrain. Now, the mud terrain, as you can see, is very aggressive, and it's designed for a vehicle that's going to be primarily used off-road with occasional use on the highway. The all-terrain is designed for a vehicle that's going to be used primarily on the highway with occasional use off-road. Now, since this Jeep is very similar to what most of you guys have, it's going to be used as a daily driver with occasional off-roading on the weekends. We're going to use these Mickey Thompson ATZ radials. The Baja ATZ is an all-terrain tire, and as you can see, it's got big, heavy-duty lugs to give you great traction in sand and rain and mud and snow, but they're also close enough together and spaced in such a way to give you a nice smooth ride on the highway with very little noise. Now, the size that we're using is a 35 by 1250, and the rims that we're putting them on are the legendary Mickey Thompson Classic 2s because they'll handle extreme off-road use and they'll look fantastic driving down the street. And there you have it. Not too high, not too low, and for most off-road enthusiasts, it's just right and a great all-around vehicle. But it still has limitations. So now that we have the suspension and wheels done, now what? Lockers, axles, gearing, what? Well, those are all great, but before you go there, one of the wisest investments you can make on an off-road rig is heavy-duty bumpers and a winch. Because these are tools that you can use all the time, pushing and pulling and dragging things, whether you're four-wheeling or not. Now, the first thing, of course, are these old stock bumpers, because these things will fold up like a napkin if we ever hit a stump or anything with them. So we're gonna get these out of the way, make room for something good. Now that we got all that plastic out of the way, the new bumper that we're going to use also comes from Rusty's Off-Road, and it's made by ARB, and it's called the Bull Bar, and for good reason. This is made out of 1/8" steel, and it is tough enough to handle whatever you're going to throw at it. Now, as you can see, this thing is all smoothed down and powder coated for a nice look. It's all decked out with turn signals and spots here for fog lights. You got areas for rubber bumpers. You even got the spot for your winch. Now up here, you got a heavy-duty grill bar that's welded on, not a cheap bolt-on deal, and it is to protect your grill from tree limbs and stuff from hitting it and messing up your radiator. This is a serious bumper for a serious Jeep, and the best part is it's got all the hardware here to bolt right in place of your stock bumper. Now, the matching ARB rear bumper is just like the front in the fact that it's all smoothed down and powder coated, so it's going to look great on that Jeep. But if you roll this thing over, you're going to see it's made out of the same heavy-duty steel as the front. Got heavy supports for the frame and all the way out here into these corners. So this thing will handle whatever you may back into or whatever may rear end you. The best part is, it bolts on just like the front. Oh yeah, that's a bumper now. When it comes to people who have helped mold and shape the automotive industry, very few have had the impact of Mickey Thompson. As a legendary driver and innovator, he helped develop and promote drag racing, as well as IndyCar racing. He also became known as the fastest man alive when he piloted his 4-engine Challenger 1 to over 400 miles an hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize was that Mickey Thompson was a serious off-road racer and was instrumental in developing the wild stadium off-road racing series that is still around today in various forms. However, one problem that became apparent very quickly in this series was the lack of proper wheels and tires that would sustain hardcore off-road abuse. So, ever the innovator, Mickey began developing off-road tires that would handle anything that you want to throw at them. And that commitment to performance continues in the Mickey Thompson tires of today. New designs are developed and tested not only off-road, but also on the highway, since most people drive their trucks on the street too. The tires are built and designed using modern radial technology and newly developed rubber compounds to ensure that the tires not only give you the traction you need, but also the handling and the drivability that's required in a modern tire. But as tire technology continues to change, the only way for Mickey Thompson tires to stay on the cutting edge is to be out there, competing in the events, and constantly developing new products for the desert racer and for the rock crawler and for the mud bogger and for the tractor puller. And of course, you and me and anybody else that needs a high-performance tire. Matter of fact, if they ever decide to put off-road tires on the space shuttle, I'm sure that Mickey Thompson Tires will probably design the tire. Because even though Mickey himself is gone, the legend continues to live on. And the company wouldn't have it any other way.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
You know, one problem that eventually rears its head when you're working on a project is buggered threads. Whether they're rusty or mangled or filled with powder coating or chrome plating, chasing threads is something that you're eventually going to have to do. Now, of course, most of you will say, oh man, no problem, and you grab your trusty tap and die set and off you go. But before you do this, you need to understand that standard tap and dies are designed to cut new threads. And when you use them in existing threads, they have a tendency to undercut the thread and give you a loose-fitting bolt that has a tendency to strip out. What you really need to be using is a rethreading kit. Now notice that the rethreading tap looks a lot different than the standard tap. That's because these are designed to clean and fix existing threads, not cut new ones. Now, I know this probably doesn't seem like it's a big deal to you, but it is, especially if you're working on something like aluminum heads or something with really fragile threads. A rethreading kit can be the difference between a great day and a really sucky afternoon. If you want to learn some more tips that will help you out in the shop, check out the tips page on the website.
And now, Parts Bin.
You know, we've talked a lot about 4x4 vehicles today, and we're putting together a really cool project called the Ridge Runner. But even though the majority of people would like to build something like this, there are a few people that would prefer to build something like that. Yeah, big and bad and hardcore. The problem is, nobody builds any kits to build something like this. I mean, you're pretty much on your own. Everything has to be hand fabricated, and not everybody has the time or the ability to do that. Fortunately, there's a company that can help you out, Ballistic Fabrication. Check it out. They specialize in brackets and hardware to help you build the suspension that you want. Want to build a radius arm or a 4-link? They got the brackets to do that. Need a custom mount for a track bar? They got brackets for that. They got shock mounts. Are you building a triangulated 4-link? They not only have the brackets for that, but they have the 15-degree band already engineered into it, so you don't have to mess with that. You need rod ends? Oh, you need to check out the Ballistic joint. This is not only completely rebuildable, but it's the toughest thing out there, and the only joint that I know of that's got a lifetime warranty. Now, as cool as all that is, I think their best thing is probably their coilover shocks. Now, they will design these and build these with your length, your travel, your spring rate for your vehicle. Now, you might be wondering, how can they do all this? Well, Ballistic Fabrication's been around the off-road world for a long time, and they test their stuff right in competition. Matter of fact, you'll see a lot of this stuff right on the competitors' rigs. So if you want to build a suspension that is actually going to work, Ballistic Fabrication is a good friend to have. If you have a muscle car or hot rod, you've probably spent a lot of time and money on the engine and the suspension because you plan on driving it a lot. But if you don't have air conditioning, you're probably not going to be driving it a whole lot. Fortunately, there's companies like Vintage Air around that specialize in complete air conditioning systems. From the unit that mounts underneath the dash, to all the hoses and the hard lines and the duct work, the evaporators, the condensers, everything that you're going to need to put air conditioning in your project. Now, they don't just have universal kits that you have to make fit. No. They have direct replacement systems like this one for the Mustang and Cougar, so they'll fit right in your vehicle, no guesswork. So if you're ready to put air conditioning in your vehicle, Vintage Airs are the guys that can help you out. There's no doubt that sticks are hot because people love to slam those gears themselves. But a lot of people don't like to push the clutch that makes that possible because that can be stiff and touchy. Well, fortunately, Modern Driveline has come out with a simple solution to that age-old problem. Now, they start with a Wilwood master cylinder, and then they add this spacer. This all mounts in the engine compartment. And then inside the car, you've got this special bracket here that bolts up and then connects to the pedal. Now, when you push the pedal, you can see that the lever here not only makes the pedal easier, but it also lengthens the stroke of the pedal a little bit, so it's easier to feather the pedal and get a good launch. So you don't have all those jackrabbit starts. So if you're going to put a stick in your car, and most of us want to, you've got to have this adapter from Modern Driveline.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Miller Electric, the leading manufacturer of arc welding and cutting equipment for your business or home shop.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from a guy named Jerome Williams in Nevada. Now, if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, it's probably because you're used to the nickname he used on the basketball court, the Junkyard Dog. Here he is, man. Here's the dog with his brand new Camaro that he helped design. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the Junkyard Dog is a big car nut. So let's dig into this Camaro a little bit. First of all, as you can see from the picture, it's got a custom front fascia with a billet grille that's all accented by silver paint to really put a cool face on this thing. Then it's got a very unique looking hood, 22-inch wheels, and all kinds of other body tricks. But this thing's just not about looks. If you look under the hood here, you'll notice that there's an STS twin turbo system to help this thing get down the road. And of course, to help make it stop, you got bigger bare brakes in behind those wheels. Of course, the interior is all decked out with cool stuff too. Now, the best thing is about this car, if you like it, you can actually buy a Junkyard Dog edition of this Camaro, and you can order it from Findlay Chevrolet in Henderson, Nevada. Man, that's cool. So, Junkyard Dog, Jerome, just to show our thanks, we are going to give you one of our new What Are You Working On t-shirts. Matter of fact, we thought about sewing a couple together just to fit your body. Now, the rest of you guys, if you'd like to get in on this, you gotta send some stuff to staceydavid.com, go to the What Are You Working On section, and submit your vehicle. We'll do the best that we can to get it on the air. We don't care if it's new, old, whatever, we want to see it. All right, that takes care of the show for today. I'm about to go beat on this Jeep, and you need to get out there and work on something. We'll see you next week.